My Beloved Grandma's Rocking Chair by Shuck. When Grandma died last month, I hadn't seen her in over a year, I'm ashamed to say, but she lived in the middle of nowhere. You know how it is. At her well-attended funeral, Grandma's neighbor Kate told me that she visited every day and that my grandma was in a lot of pain by the end. She seemed to say this to comfort me. Can you believe it? I guess Kate meant well. By default, I inherited everything, as I was Grandma's only living relative. My mom hanged herself years back. But I couldn't really transport everything straight away, so I took one thing back home with me, Grandma's rocking chair. My earliest memory is of my grandma happily rocking back and forth in that old chair. She told me it dated from colonial times, but with a twinkle in her eyes, so I knew she was fibbing. Grandma and I really understood one another. I've never felt that connection with anyone else, ever. I drove home to find my neighbor Jane waiting for me with a puppy as a gift to cheer me up, and a hug, and an offer of a shoulder to cry on. And I did cry. Really cry. Niagara Falls. It was the same at work. Lots of hugs, lots of frowns, lots of idiotic philosophy about life and death and everything in between. Lots of shoulders to cry on. Niagara Falls every time. I've always been good at crying, and I relish the attention. I placed Grandma's rocking chair in my living room, though my puppy hated it straight away, snarled like a hound of hell until I dragged him away, snapping and yapping at nothing. The first night, as I lay awake, the chair began to creak. Creak, creak, creak. Slowly, rhythmically, as if my grandma still sat in it, happy as Larry. How my puppy howled. I had no time for ghostly beliefs. I'm a cold, rational person, so the next night I made sure every window was shut. Creak, creak, creak. Howl, howl, howl. At work the next day, lots more hugs and tears, I decided to get rid of the chair. It was keeping me awake. What seemed weird was how all the sympathy set my way was due to my young daughter Heather's suicide, the day before Grandma's overdose. I guess nobody really cares when your grandma dies. All the cards and flowers were due to Heather, who wasn't worth anything alive. I'd realized it was probably news of Heather's death that pushed Grandma over the edge. I guess that actions can have consequences. I threw out the chair, but as I lay awake, again I heard creak, creak, creak. So, adamantly and a little uneasy, I crept into the living room to confront my ghost. I found Heather hanging there. Her eyes still burned with terror and hatred, kicking and screaming, but making no sound except creak, creak, creak. Then she swayed gently. Creak, creak, creak. Night after night. I'd move, but I can't allow anyone else to see this. Can't let the sympathy stop.